Have you ever wondered why some older folks stop visiting others? Let me tell you a story about my life at 70 and the 6 reasons I've hung up my visiting shoes. You know, when I was younger, I used to love going here, there, and everywhere, visiting friends, family, even the neighbor down the street for a quick chat. But these days, well, let's just say my couch and I have developed a very serious relationship. It's not that I don't love people, I really do. But over the years I've found that the joys and sometimes the struggles of visiting just aren't the same. Every time I step out, there's a new story to bring home. Some are funny, some a little embarrassing, and others downright exhausting. Today I want to share 6 of those stories with you. The moments that convinced me it's okay to say, no thanks, I'll stay in. So grab a cup of tea, get comfy, and let me take you through this little journey of mine. Who knows? Maybe by the end you'll understand why I prefer my slippers over my visiting shoes. Reason 1. The too many stairs saga. I remember the first time I went to visit my old friend Janet. She had just moved into a beautiful 3-story house. Now let me set the scene. It was the kind of house that looks lovely from the outside, all polished and pristine. But as soon as I walked in, I realized there was one small problem. The stairs. Janet was so excited to show me around, and of course I didn't want to be rude, so I said, "Sure, I'd love a tour." She grinned and led me straight to the staircase. I didn't think much of it at the time. I mean, I'd climbed a few stairs in my day. But after the first flight, I started to feel a little winded. No big deal, right? I just stopped for a second to catch my breath. But then, we kept going, and going, and going. By the time we hit the 2nd floor, I was huffing like I had just run a marathon. I even had to pause on the landing, hands on my knees, trying not to embarrass myself. And Janet? She was practically skipping up those stairs like a gazelle. Finally, we made it to the top floor, and I sat down on the couch with a sigh of relief, thinking I was going to need a nap after that. Janet, of course, was perfectly fine and started chatting away about the view. At that moment, I realized something. The stairs had nearly defeated me. So I made a decision right then and there. No more multi-story houses for me. That's right. After that day, every time someone invites me to their 3-story home, I politely decline. I've learned that there's just no amount of charm that can make me want to face another set of stairs. It's funny, isn't it? As we get older, our bodies just start to have different opinions about what they're willing to do. What used to be a little jaunt up a flight of stairs now feels like climbing Mount Everest. And the truth is, that's okay. I've come to appreciate the flat, one-level places in life where I can just walk around without feeling like I've run a marathon. Reason 2. The tea incident. That wasn't tea. The good old tea time. A lovely tradition, right? Or at least it's supposed to be. Let me tell you about a visit I had a few years ago that made me rethink the whole idea of tea forever. It was a crisp afternoon, and I had just popped over to my neighbor's house for what I thought would be a nice, relaxing chat. Now, Betty, bless her heart, is one of those people who always means well, but somehow manages to get the simplest things just a little bit wrong. She led me into the living room, plopped me down on the couch, and said, "I'll get us some tea." I smiled, looking forward to a nice hot cup of my favorite Earl Grey, maybe with a little milk and sugar. What could go wrong, right? Well, she came back with a mug of what looked like tea, but the moment I took a sip, my taste buds almost revolted. The taste was thick, strange, and way too sweet. I immediately pulled the cup away from my lips and looked at it like it had just betrayed me. "Betty, this doesn't taste like tea," I said, trying to be polite. She just smiled and said, "Oh, it's prune juice. I thought you'd like it." Now, let me tell you, I had no idea prune juice could be so bitterly sweet. It was like a strange cocktail of regret and confusion, and no amount of polite smiles could disguise my feelings. As I sat there, trying not to make a face, I realized this was not the relaxing, comforting visit I had envisioned. It was a battle of willpower between me and the mysterious prune beverage in my hand. The moral of the story? Well, it's not just about prune juice, though believe me, I learned my lesson there. It's about the quirks of other people that, let's face it, can sometimes make visiting more of a challenge than it's worth. I love Betty to pieces, but after that day I realized something important. I really don't want to risk any more tea mishaps. Now I'm perfectly happy to stay home, where I can brew my own tea just the way I like it, without any surprises. And honestly, after that incident, I think I've earned the right to skip any future tea time invitations. Reason 3. The Who's Got Gossip decision. I don't know about you, but when I was younger, I didn't mind a good gossip session. It was part of the fun, right? Chatting about this person or that situation, sharing stories with friends, and sometimes even getting a little juicy with it. But something changed as I got older, and boy, did it hit me during one particular visit. It was to a friend I hadn't seen in a while. When I arrived, she was full of energy. She greeted me with a warm hug and invited me into the living room, where, of course, the coffee came out. But then the conversation took a turn. Instead of catching up on life, we started talking about old acquaintances, and before I knew it, we were deep in a gossip session. At first, I joined in because, well, it felt like the normal thing to do. But after a while, I began to feel drained. The gossip wasn't light or funny. It was negative, focusing on people's flaws, their mistakes, their drama. The energy in the room shifted from fun to heavy, and I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me. I remember sitting there staring at my coffee cup, wishing I could just escape. It wasn't that I didn't care about the people we were talking about, I did. But I realized this is not the kind of conversation I want to have anymore. I started thinking about how precious time is, especially as you get older. Why spend it digging through other people's drama when you could be enjoying peace and laughter instead? By the end of the visit, I was exhausted. Not from the conversation itself, but from the negativity that had taken so much energy out of me. I realized then that I didn't have the time or the desire to indulge in gossip anymore. Life's too short for that. Now, when I visit someone, I want to have meaningful conversations that leave me feeling lighter, not drained. It's funny how, as we grow older, our priorities shift. I value peace, good company, and positive vibes far more than I ever did before, and honestly, I'm much happier in my own space, away from the gossip. It's the quiet moments, the laughter, and the genuine connections that make me feel at home now. Reason 4. The every visit's a sleepover. Problem. Now, I'm all for a good visit, but there's something I've learned over the years. The longer the visit goes, the harder it is to leave. I remember visiting an old friend of mine, Marie, for what was supposed to be a simple afternoon catch-up. We had planned for a quick chat over coffee, just an hour or so to reconnect. I had my plans, maybe a nap afterward or perhaps some quiet time reading. But of course, that didn't exactly happen. Marie's hospitality is legendary. I'm talking about the kind of friend who insists you stay just a little bit longer because you're having such a good time. And honestly, I was. We were talking, laughing, and reminiscing about old memories. It felt like no time at all had passed. But as the hours went on, Marie kept offering more snacks, more tea, and of course, more conversation. Before I knew it, it was 8 p.m., and then came the infamous, "Well, it's so late now, why don't you just stay over?" You'd think I'd have learned by now, but no. I was polite. I didn't want to turn her down. One thing led to another, and next thing I knew, I was sprawled out on the guest bed in my pajamas, trying to find a comfortable position for sleep. And that was just the start of the sleepover saga. The next morning, I was treated to a grand breakfast, followed by more chatting, which led to another round of, "Oh, just stay a little longer." By the end of the weekend, I was ready to head home, feeling like I'd been on a mini vacation, and not necessarily in the best way. It was a lovely visit, don't get me wrong, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. My home, my routine, my quiet space were so much more valuable than I realized. I loved spending time with friends, but there's something to be said about the joy of having your own space to retreat to at the end of the day. Now, I've gotten better about politely but firmly setting boundaries. I still love a good visit, but I don't want it to turn into a weekend event unless I'm really prepared for it. As I get older, I've come to appreciate the comfort of my own space, my own schedule. I don't need to stay over to prove I'm a good friend. And frankly, my bed is calling me after a certain point. So if I tell you I've got a short window for a visit, well, now you know why. Reason 5, the out-of-date small talk dilemma. One of the biggest surprises I've had as I've gotten older is realizing just how out of the loop I've become when it comes to current trends. I used to be right there with everyone, chatting about the latest TV shows, the most popular songs, or the newest tech gadgets. But these days, a visit to see some of the younger folks leaves me feeling like I've stepped onto another planet. Let me tell you about one particular visit that really opened my eyes. I went to see my niece a while back. She's in her 20s, and we used to have the best talks about everything from music to fashion. But this time, things were a little different. The minute I walked in, she launched into a conversation about TikTok, and I just sat there completely lost. I had no idea what she was talking about. She was telling me about viral dance challenges and this new app that everyone's obsessed with, while I stared at her like she had just started speaking in a foreign language. I tried to keep up, but every time I nodded along, I could feel myself drifting further away. And don't get me started on the tech gadgets. Oh, the gadgets. My niece showed me her latest phone, and it was so complicated I couldn't even figure out how to unlock it. She mentioned the newest smart everything, smart watches, smart refrigerators, smart glasses, and I just nodded, pretending I knew what she was on about. But inside I was thinking, who needs a fridge that can tell you when to buy milk? My brain was fried trying to keep up with all the new jargon and devices. It hit me then. It's harder to connect with younger generations when there's such a huge gap in the things we talk about. It's not that I don't want to understand or keep up with the times, it's just that, well, my interests have changed. I find myself caring more about the simpler things, a good book, a cozy afternoon, or maybe just catching up on a show I've been watching for years. And that's perfectly fine. But these visits, full of new trends and tech talk, can leave me feeling disconnected. As I get older, I've realized that I don't need to be up to date on everything to have a meaningful conversation. It's okay to let go of trying to keep up with every trend. I'd rather talk about the things that truly matter to me, things that are timeless and rooted in genuine connection. And honestly, I think that's where the real value lies. Reason 6, the home is heaven realization. There's a moment I'll never forget, a time when I truly understood the magic of staying home. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon, and I had a visit planned with a friend. I had been looking forward to catching up, but as the day went on, I found myself just not wanting to leave the house. My favorite chair was calling to me, the one that's just the right shape to sink into and forget about the world for a while. The sun was shining through the windows, casting that perfect golden glow over my books and plans. I thought to myself, why am I rushing off to see someone when this feels like paradise? I could already hear the hum of the kettle boiling, the soft rustle of pages turning in my book, and the calm that came with sitting in my garden, watching the birds flutter about. It was in that moment that I realized something so simple yet so profound. Home wasn't just a place. It was a feeling of comfort, peace, and joy. So I made a decision. I canceled the visit. I called my friend and explained, I'm sorry, but today I'm choosing to stay home and enjoy the quiet. And honestly, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. I spent the rest of the afternoon doing nothing extraordinary, just sipping tea, reading my book, and spending time in my garden, and I felt completely content. As I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate my own space in a way I never did before. It's not about avoiding people or being antisocial. It's about knowing that sometimes the best company you can have is yourself. I've learned that home is more than just where you live. It's where your soul feels at ease. So now, when I think about going out or staying in, it's no contest. I've found heaven here in the comfort of my own space, and let me tell you, there's no place I'd rather be. Conclusion. So, there you have it. 6 reasons why I've decided to hang up my visiting shoes at 70. It's not that I don't love my friends and family, but I've come to realize that sometimes the best place to be is right where I am, in the comfort of my own space. I hope you enjoyed hearing these little stories, and maybe you can relate to some of them. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to comment below with a 9 if you're already living the homebody life, or a 0 if you're still all about those visits. Until next time, take care and enjoy the peace of your own space.